So we are also going to have a panel discussion, and we'll start with Q. We'll start with Q, and Q, why do you think it's important to have a historicity of sorts when it comes to the Indian graphic novel at this moment and juncture of time? Because it has traveled so much, it has traveled at least 2 decades of what we know as the Indian graphic novel right now. And why do you think it's important to note down these points and moments in history in the making of the Indian graphic novel as we understand it?
So this is a documentary. I've already, my original passion in filmmaking came from non-fiction. And so documentary offers you this unique hybrid, form, where it is not only truth that you're recording, but a subjective truth. And therefore, due to the circumstances around that truth at that moment of time, it is nebulous. And what I find interesting here is that the documentation is in the same form as the subject which is documented. So if this was about a documentary film, as a seasoned producer, you might have made a documentary about graphic novels, but you chose to do it in this form, which is, I think, is quite interesting, and especially in the time that we live in, where documentary is something which is being looked at, or not being looked at. Let's say that it is one of the lowest commitment that human beings are giving to documentaries historically. So in that situation, a book like this can maybe plug that gap of the veracity of the time that you try to look.
So don't you think, to you only, don't you think that when we are making these specific choices, so for example, there are 9 chapters in this book, so it's impossible to cover each and every credible graphic novel voice that is there in the country, and I really regret not including Appu Pen, because sadly I have not read too much of him and I don't know him personally either. So in both the formats, like personal stories and the historicity, I didn't have much material on Appu Pen, so I couldn't do that. But I know that he cannot be left out from a book like this. So maybe when I do a book later, a sequel or something, maybe I can include him or something. So yeah. No, he deserves a chapter. So, don't you think that when we are even making certain selections, as the names that I just threw around, that these people are featured in the book and all, so what do you think that these specific names even contribute, like a Arijit Sen or a Sanat Banerjee or an Amruta Patil or a Bakar Max? These are very diverse voices doing very diverse things. But the style also are very diverse, but somewhere the Indian ethos is very much, ingrained into whatever they're doing. It cannot be called a rip-off of a European or an American thing. So why, what do you think that this choice of even choosing these people for this particular book, how much it does it affect in how authentic we are to the process of historicity?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have Chota Bheem. I recently went to a conference in Goa, which is called Transcend, and it is about transmedia conference. And there's a huge interest in comics, huge. apparently there's a lot of money as well. That's what I was told. I mean, everyone was told. The problem is that how you qualify your definition of what you're documenting. If you had to document what is exactly happening in a consumer society such as ours, where in order to make anything applicable anymore, you need massive numbers. So we have a problem with massive numbers, and therefore your choice is your subjective lens of critical thinking individuals, artists who are these storytellers in this form, and that's what you've chosen. And it happens because of the fact that these are all people who are non-mainstream. These are all people who are not popular. That their works don't sell for crores. That's also a reason possibly that you're choosing. So in this choice, I think there's a tribalism that plays out, and I think that we've had an enormous history, and Stalin is here, who's one of the chroniclers of that history of the times that we've had, even in Bengal and all over India, where this kind of line of thought was well documented, I think pushed out, distributed well, so that it reaches those numbers. There was a time. Maybe more and more of this will lead us somewhere. I would like to ask you what is the digital solution to this also? Because no commodity is existing anymore in one space. So how is that going to work out?
I don't have any easy answers for that, definitely. And when you say the word digital, well, it's actually a very different word that I would not use for this book, because it is completely handwritten. It's completely handwritten. So the idea is to go against that tide of digital, of AI, that how authentic even the form becomes, and how much it belongs to the essence of you mentioned tribalism in a very different context, but tribalism in here, as in art forms and all, like it's always been a handwritten, hand-drawn tradition in our country, and we never thought that, oh, this is not legible handwriting, or the whole system was like that, and for obvious reasons before the printing press. But the fact that Charbak, I want to come to that the next question only, and we will discuss more about that. But just to touch upon that hand lettering is something that is coming back. Like how? I mean, Charbak won 2 awards in the comic book awards very recently for lettering, and I think it's very important to marry these traditions. I use a lot of folk art motifs in my work. I think it's very important to marry this, because if it's there at our disposal, why not use it? I mean, to quote Ompuri from 100-foot journey, if you have a spice, use it, spoon it in, don't sprinkle. So I think I would now move to Charbak, now that we are speaking about hand lettering and everything. So Charbak, the comics handbook is completely handwritten, and there are doodles, and as I said, it's a diary kind of a format. It's like a comic lover's diary through the journey that is the Indian graphic novel. So I would like to ask you how important it is in today's day and age to hand letter or handwrite something in the age of the digital.
Yeah, it's up to your choice, because you have to, when you are making a graphic novel, you have 2 choices to do it digitally or by handwriting manually. So it's up to you. When you are handwriting, this lettering, there are more characters. It's more personalized. It also reflects your character. So it's up to you. It's up to your choice whether you want to make manual lettering or digital lettering. So for me, my second book actually was hand lettered. It was called Apes. It's an Indian alien series. So after that, I moved to digital lettering. So currently, when I do the SFX, like someone punching someone, so I do this SFX manually, but the rest of the lettering I do usually do by digital. So it's up to your choice.
So, like my next book that's gonna come, that's also completely hand lettered, and it is more of a graphic. So this is a graphic anthology. This one, the comics handbook, but the Meghnad one is a full graphic novel, right? And while hand lettering, as you say, that the impact and the character that comes with doing it by hand is very different from a digital tool, because there are only that many number of formats and all.
Actually, you can also mix your handwriting with your digital technology, because you can make your handwriting into a typeface that you can type also. So both are possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Both are possible. So I would like to know a little bit from you that in today's day and age, this is something also that I have noticed more in the case of Indian graphic novels than in European graphic novels. I have not seen this much in bulk that people are doing hand lettering, but even people like Bucker Max are returning to hand lettering and all that. So if more and more people are returning, what is the reason? Why do you think when it is easier to type it out, it's so easier to do the layout and everything, why are people gravitating more towards hand lettering and doing it by hand?
Because it has a personal touch. You are doing the handwriting by hand. It has your handwriting, right? So people are doing more personalized thing. So that's why I think they are gradually moving towards it. But it was actually a personal choice. And Indian graphic novel scene is so niche and so small. So that's why people can have the freedom to do everything. If it's commercialized or it's a corporate, it's very difficult to do your thing on your own. But it's very niche industry. Actually, there is no industry in Indian.
Call ourselves invest.
Yeah. So the more it's corporatized, the more
cottage industry.
Cottage industry, you can say that.
Okay, so I'll move to Falah. So Falah, I was having this discussion with you the other day also, that how important it is to have, if I term it as Indian ethos, in doing a graphic novel which is geographically situated in India and it is not resembling a poorer cousin of a Marvel or DC. What would you like to say?
First of all, the comic is not set in India, it's set in Andhra Pradesh, which is a parody of India. It's not really India. But I feel like I really did not think about it too much until you brought it up. But I remember that I had an interaction with a singer called Shriram from Scrat. So once in Bangalore, there was a Badland event, and I went and handed him my comic book. And he looked at it, he looked at the cover, and first thing he told me, like, hey, this looks Indian. Like, and then he flipped through it, and the characters look Indian, the surroundings look Indian, and that's the first time I was given that feedback, which to me was interesting because I never really thought of it in those kind of terms. Because a lot of people discover comics, at least here, through Tinkle, through Chacha Chaudhary, and those kind of stuff. And I didn't have that experience. I got it because of Gotham Comics, and Gotham was reprinting Marvel and DC for Indian kids in the 90s and stuff. And as luck would have it, like they were going out of business and their godown happened to be next to my house. So I just got a treasure trove of comics reading it. So I never really thought of anything as a particularly Indian ethos. Almost all of my influences are Western. Like if you ask who are my primary inspirations as writers, as Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, it's not really, it's a Western influence, but how do you condense it and make it your own, I think is what makes it Indian. way. In the same way, in my graphic novel, I don't draw. I work with an illustrator. I write the stories, and this part of the illustrator has manga influences. So my writing is influenced by the West, but his art is influenced by the East, and that comes together to make it Indian. I feel because we borrow from both sides and खुद खिचड़ी पकाते हैं या बिरयानी पकाते हैं. So that I feel is, I don't know if there's a particular Indian ethos. I've never really thought about it so much. I feel it's an amalgamation of various influences.
Yeah, I would like to ask Charbak also this question that so many, like your Hojobaru especially, you know, it is so steeped in Bengali ethos. So how do you think that it's important to retain these cultural motifs in our work, which will still resonate to a wider audience? It's been read all over the world. So how important a role does these local motifs play?
I would say the more local you go, the more global you go, because the more you reflect your own culture, your root, the more globalized it becomes and it reaches most of the people. So I try to reflect my Bengali roots and Indian roots as well. So I am actually from a small town, Bonga. So my whole childhood is, I spent my whole childhood there. So it reflects sometimes in my work, and I continue to reflect this memory, childhood memory in my work. So I try to reflect those memories in my work. Yeah.
Speaking of memories, it reminds me of Gandu Mundu's whole take on how the relationship between Kali and Gandu is something that is like every boy relates. Like that is their relationship with Kali, between Kali and what's there in Gandu. So, would you like to add a little bit to this discussion that how important it is to have these local motifs to resonate to a larger audience?
I don't think that speciality design has anything to do with the audience. These are stories that are told in different forms. You could have manuals created, you could have digital artworks even. You could even do AI comics. Everyone is doing everything. Ultimately, it's about, I think about the strength of your story and then the strength of your distribution. Because for any story to travel, the voice has to be strong, right? Otherwise, the story doesn't travel. A great example of this is the fact that we have all grown up seeing this image of Nehru and Gandhi and all these guys, and there were always this design Chicago radio on the mics that they used to speak. You remember that? You remember Chicago radio? It had nothing to do with Chicago. So the thing was that in the early 1920s, when the Congress Party was making conferences where lots of people turned up, the major problem was application. So there was no way that they could amplify it. And then there was this guy who was an intern in the Congress at that time. He was volunteering. And his dad was a Gujarati trader who had got this American company or some German company who had dumped a lot of microphones and they couldn't sell them. They were rotting in this factory. And this guy started tinkering with it. He was very cool, obviously, and figured out by the next national convention, I think it was in 1922 or 23, when with the Chicago radio name, and then for the first time people could hear Gandhi. Because no one could hear him before that. Not that we are getting into Gandhi Nehru politics. I'm just saying, amplification is an extremely crucial part, and I think one of the key things that we need to think about. So the form also is determined by somewhat that, right? By your resources, what is available. Because we are not white artists. White artists choose to do something. Because, oh, they can afford to choose. You can't afford shit anyway. So what the fuck is choice? Democracy is an illusion for us because we really don't have choice. We do what we can do in the circumstances. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the same thing to all three of you. So this is something that has been addressed in the book. Like this is one entire whole chapter on it. I personally feel, and I think a lot of you will share the same concern, that Indian graphic novels is no longer a subgenre of Asian comics or Asian graphic novels. It is a genre of its own. If Japan has its manga, India, we do not have a term for Indian graphic novels, but there is a very distinctive style and a very distinctive politics that goes without saying. So, how would you reflect on the fact that if I say that it is no longer a subgenre but a genre of itself? Falah, let's start with you.
I think one of the main things for it to be mainstream enough to be its own genre is that it needs to be affordable first and foremost. It's only like when if it's priced way out of anybody's reach, it's always going to be a subgenre that, like, even right now, for me to buy a Marvel or DC comic that's about 700-800 rupees, you think multiple times you were spending that kind of money because you're going to read it once, you're going to collect that dust. So affordability, I think, is a major factor for it to become a genre of its own. And the second thing I feel is very important, that kids need to read it. Because like a lot of us discovered comics as kids, most people discover comics as kids. And unless kids are able to afford it with maybe the pocket money that they have, or maybe like get their parents to buy it, unless that happens, I don't think it really becomes a genre of its own for it to break out and have an audience. I feel like the ethos is evolving because of how many people are getting involved, right? So we have this thing called Indie Comics Fest, happens all over the country. And with every year that it happens, we have more and more creators participating. So like from the very first year when I participated in Comics Fest, maybe there would have been 30 participants in Bangalore. The last one would have had 95 participants. So that many people are out there making it and that much amount of quantity is being produced. Then eventually it will become a genre of its own as opposed to being a subgenre. But yes, naming it is very important because unless we have a name, we might not know what to call it.
Charbak?
Yeah, speaking of genre, I don't think we don't have this much creator like West have or Japan have to make it a genre. Because if you talk about pan-Indian comics, we mainly see the mythological comics that they are like Amachitra Katha. It's the main genre we can say of Indian comics. Other than this, there is indie comics like Sharnath Banerjee or Arjit Singh or Ed Sheeran or others. And so I don't think there are basic genre as such in Indian comics other than Amar Chitra Katha. So yeah, there is manga. Actually, the manga is becoming very much popular all over the world as well as in India. So we are here to develop a genre, and more people should come to Indian comic scene. Like we need more female creators like you to come to Indian comics. Actually, we are searching for female creators while we are organizing the panel in last year in Kolkata Comics Carnival. So more and more people need to come to this fraternity to make it a genre of Indian comics.
While you were saying that, yeah, true, there aren't enough creators, that's definitely...
That's why we don't have an industry.
Yeah, we don't have industry because we don't have any financial value. But interestingly, when you mention Amar Chitra Katha, so they made it a movement of sorts that, you are taking a train to anywhere, a kid is bound to read Tinkle or Amar Chitra Katha. It's there in every train stall. And that itself became a movement in how we even thought comics existed. So either, yes, there were mythological stories, or what interestingly Tinkle did was it involved the readers, which is young children, and you give us your stories and we will make a comic out of that. So that tradition, I think, also fostered a lot of people's interest in comics, say, like what you were saying. So do you think we need to have another, like they didn't call it a movement, of course, but do you think we need to have another kind of a movement of sorts like Amar Chitragatha did to initiate people that this is, initiation is very important, to initiate that what is possible in the form. Like for me instance, what I started off reading as Indian graphic novels really changed my mind that comics are limited and they can only evoke humor. It can't talk about serious things. These are the predispositions that I had when we were reading comics, and then there was Sarnath Banerjee or Amruta Patil or people like that who completely changed the game for me personally. So do you think for these kind of subjects and these kind of niches, what should be the way forward? What do you think?
We are talking about the genre of Sarnath Banerjee and his chain. These are very niche. What we need to popularize comics in this country is distribution and investment and genre like mythology actually. Because in this country, mythology says the best. And as you were talking about, the Tinkle is available everywhere. It's the 90s scene or 80s scene. Currently, it's replaced by manga. So manga is hugely popular these days. So making comics popular, to make comics popular, we need investment and organize investment and distribution and commercialization. And we also need government investment because in mangas, the Japanese and Korean government invest a lot in this industry. It's their soft power to reach the global industry. So we need investment, and our government doesn't take comics seriously. It doesn't consider comics as a part of literature. So we need this change to change this scene.
There was a comic book competition the government organized last year. Okay. So there was a comics making competition the government organized last year where they gave a set of topics and genres like horror, comedy to do it. So the government is getting into the picture. It's just that it's going to be stuff that they will approve of.
But there is a competition. Just they are not investing.
So I'm guessing whoever wins it gets it printed, published, promoted, etc., by the government organization. So that happened last year. I tried to participate in it and didn't like it.
But that is for just one cause.
Yeah.
We need investment in huge scale.
Everyone. Yeah.
In the industry level.
Q?
Yeah.
Yeah. The same question, that do you think it's no longer a subgenre but a genre by itself?
No, unfortunately, it's not. Like how, unfortunately, even independent Indian cinema is not actually a genre. Right? So, and that's the problem is with, again, distribution, and allocation of funds will only happen when distribution channels are set. And in a country like ours, what happens is that we are not a country which destabilizes anything.
We are comfortable.
I mean, that's something that we're fighting. So even in terms of music, film, and graphic novels, comics, if you want to do something else, let's say you get it done and then it even works. Now there will be the industry at large at play, who then will have different combinations to either subvert that or to take that. Now, interesting thing that's happening in music is that for the first time in our modern history, independent music is finally broken free of the film music, sort of this BDSM game that they were playing. So now, for the first time, consecutive 2 years, we've had top 10s, non-films songs. So if you look at that, and the rise of independent music in India and how that is being now distributed, monetized. Buckerman's actually was the company which is whose mandate was this, how to make the pipeline for comics and to get it back to the trades. Right? Now, the problem that we are again coming back to is the fact that we don't have an audience. Ramunda in Lepacha says very, Raman Chakraborty, some of you know him, he says something in this one film where he says that, you know, artists have always been supplied. Correct time, correct things have come. The problem is the audience takes about 20 to 30 years to respond to it. That's our problem. So, even with the pipeline, will the response time shift? Because the response time is governed by circumstances that are beyond our control. Right? So, if there's no interest at all, so now you're talking about, okay, you have to not only initiate, but you have to actually create interest first. In Manga's case, it was done through individual artists right from the beginning of manga, where they would produce these many copies because they had these many buyers. So if you had 35 people, it was like, you know, subscription based. So they would pay them every month to keep continuing the story. One of our friends in Goa tried this out. And it's called Goa 2075. It's very cool, check it out. There's like all kinds of artwork that is used, different artists, but the same story is going on. And that sort of had some impact, but I still don't think that it went as mainstream to call that a genre, like storytelling in these forms. And this is more and more an issue with the platform and the algorithmic sort of suppression system that we have. So I think major thing that we'll have to figure out as artists is that we can't think of these in isolation. We have distribution problems in our fucking everything that we have. We have distribution problems, and without that, no fund will ever come. So nobody will invest, so nothing will ever grow. How do we fix this? As artists, we need to figure out, and how do we make the audience aware of the fact that they are losing out if they're not participating, because they don't think so.
No, but when you were saying Parker Max also earlier, the reason Indian comic books have a different feature, I feel, is that a lot of us have evolved online.
Yes.
Like we've evolved digitally, we've evolved because of social media. My comic book is square because Instagram only allowed square. Instagram only had 10 pages, which is why I had to tell a story in carousel format within 10 pages, etc. etc. So a lot of Indian comics, when you look at Bucker Max's work, it's all developed and evolved on the internet, which I feel makes it a unique feature of what Indian comics are different from. Like I post it first and then I think about printing it afterwards, after 3 stories are done. So I think the role of social media has played a huge factor. I have an audience and I have a book out now because of social media. I'm guessing a lot of how I've discovered his work has also been through Instagram and social media. So the social media has played a role. It does solve distribution problems. So Instagram is on everybody's phone. So anybody has a phone is your audience. It's how we get it to those people without being spammy. This is what we need to figure out.
Yeah, even green humor, Rohan Chakraborty's green humor. I was just, before coming to this place, I was just looking at a reel at him and it broke my heart. He was saying that Carry On Ruddy has had a short print run and he was listing out the problems, why they couldn't print more books and all, and how it's gonna go off, people's memory. now that it's out in the print, things have been out on social media much prior and everything. And this is a problem. This is a problem. And as you said that you could not know of Charbak's work and all before that, although we are all from the same niche and everything. This is another thing that I was also unable to sample a lot of people's work, and when I meet them in Comic Con, I was like, oh my god, we have so many common friends. Then how come we didn't get to see? Because the algorithm is supposed to show things that you're interested in. I think it is making us more and more
But it is a tool, it's how you use it.
yeah, it's a tool also, of course. Like without social media, we cannot sell our books, that is for sure. But that's there. So I will come to the last discussion of the panel. So this is about Doshhu, and I thought one subject on Doshhu should suffice it. So I personally have a fascination with 19th century, so that's why I did Doshhu, that's why I'm doing the Meghnad Wall after this. And I somehow feel that none of the issues are dated, and we are living in the same era, only our heroes and villains have changed faces, and we are going about the same problematic life that people 2 centuries prior would have been going through. Same problems politically also. So why do you think it's important to retell, adapt, translate, or bring these works that have had a certain shelf life or timestamp into things in mediums in today's contemporary sense?
So I think there's two things I could talk about in this. So like with comics in particular, I think when you read a comic, it activates a different part of your brain, because we've been consuming stories and pictures since we were living in caves. So if you look at cave paintings, they are a form of comics. Egyptian hieroglyphics are a form of comics. So we've been communicating in this way for so long that it triggers something else in our brains that maybe just written word or a video cannot, because this is something else we're getting. And when it comes to retelling stories, I feel like there are only a handful of stories out there. There are maybe 12 or 20 types of stories you can tell. The only new thing you can come is mix and match it and like make something new. So I was very influenced by Joseph Campbell, who written this book called Hero with a Thousand Faces, where he basically does comparative mythology, where he studies myths from across the world, combines them and draws comparisons as to like, this culture also has a great flood story, that culture also has a great flood story. This character also was put in a basket and put in a river. This character also was put in a basket and put in a river and got to safety. So there's so many stories that appear across cultures, even if there are no geographical connections between them, because that's at a deeper human level. We crave these narratives. So when you update it for the modern times, you present it in a way that the new people, a younger audience can consume it. It ensures that these stories continue to live on. Like in my book, I think I've drawn inspiration from every religion in the world and mixed it and matched it and put it together, because that's how religions anyways get created and formed. So keeping the stories alive, I think it's inevitable that the story will remain alive. You just become the medium for it to come into the next phase of its storytelling.
Charbak.
Yeah, so though I like to tell my own story, it's sometimes very important to adapt old story. Like I did my first Bengali Hoja Award. It's an adaptation of Shukumar Rai, and when published, it for the new generation of Bengalis, and when published by HarperCollins in English, it reached to the pan-Indian audience and all over India. The readers came to know that Shukumar Rai existed. Our Lewis Carroll. So it's very important to revive our favorite old texts like Shukumar Rai. I'm also currently adapting Ramayana in graphic novel in YouTube. You can see my YouTube channel. So I've also adapted Hiran Mitra last. So in between telling my own story and original story, I like to adapt old story. and of course my favorite story.
Final notes.
Yeah, so this is time is cyclic. You all know that. Therefore, it keeps coming, same shit keeps coming back. Basically, the shit doesn't leave the pot.
There's no flush.
Yeah, it's the floaters. And I think what is happening to us is that because we are rushing towards Gorkholi, or maybe we are in it, it's just getting stupider. Like if you go back 100 years and you read stuff and you're like, what the fuck? Why am I so stupid? What those people were doing, like mad shit at that time. In 1922, in 1990, and you know one of our favorite ever artists is Begum Rokhaya. And Begum Rokhaya was writing that shit in 1907, between 1907 and 1920. By 1920, she's like too busy organizing school and shit. And what are we doing? And then we are, so modernity is an excuse, right? It's an illusion, much like democracy, and all these things are basically trying to push humanity back, and which is why I started with the Gorkholi situation. It's also a great time of chaos, but in Bengal at least, or in India, are we being able to produce the level of at the level of production which Gorkholi demands us to? We are not producing in that level. We are not feeling যে যমরাজের আগুনের আঁচ আমার পাছায় লাগছে, এটা হচ্ছে না। এই জন্য আমাদের কিছু হচ্ছে না, এটাই আমার বক্তব্য। How?
So there's the phrase that everybody knows that history repeats itself. The full phrase actually is history repeats itself. First time is tragedy, second time is farce. So we are probably the farcical side of things.
And we are in the 12th cycle already. We are so
funny. So that's the end of our panel discussion. Thank you all for coming out here. We'll be shortly serving some tea and snacks. And you can check out the books that are displayed over here. There's some merchandise as well. And short of the একটু বলে দেবেন কোথায় কোথায় বইটা পাওয়া যাবে?
মোস্টলি আমাজনে পাওয়া যাবে, আমাজনে অর্ডার করলে পরশু থেকেই অ্যাভেলেবেল হবে। এছাড়াও কলকাতার ক্ষেত্রে কলেজ স্ট্রিটে পাবেন। এছাড়া আমাদের যে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ নাম্বার আছে 9830371467, যেটা সপ্তর্ষি প্রকাশনের হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ নাম্বার, সেখানেও কেউ যদি নাম এবং ঠিকানা দিয়ে অর্ডার করেন তাহলে তারাও 3-4 মধ্যে বাড়িতে পেয়ে যাবেন। এইটা মোটামুটি আপাতত আমরা শর্ট আউট করেছি। আফটার দ্যাট আমরা যদি আরো কিছু জায়গা ওপেন করতে পারি সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা ফেসবুকেই জানিয়ে দেবো।
Guys, you can take a look at the books over there.
আমরা ওপেনিংটা করে নিই।
Please.
Comics, Handbook and Doshhu, guys.
ম্যাডাম ফেসটা গার্ড হয়ে গেছে স্যার, ফেসটা গার্ড হয়ে গেছে। আপনারটা ঠিক আছে, আদার্সগুলো এক এক করে। তারপরে তো গান চারবাককে দিই। ওকে